folks, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA Wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow. I do the show 4 times a week. I do it live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday through Thursday, and not at 8. We were going to do it at 8 Eastern Time, but now 9 o'clock. Why 9? Well, you know, one of the things that happens as you go through life is you realize that there's a lot of truth to a lot of the old sayings that you hear. Maybe it's just the accumulation of knowledge you have that makes everything make a lot more sense. But, you know, the devil is in the details. And we were, or at least I, was convinced that we would switch the times to something a little bit more convenient. I have long days as it is. I was trying to make them a little bit more, or a little more compressed, shall I say. But it didn't work out that way. When we actually brought the numbers across today, we found out that, as we have talked about before, different data vendors have different numbers. And so we pushed the charts out today, and I was looking at them, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. And we tried to massage it around, make it work, and finally just said, okay, it's not going to work. It's not going to work until we cut to the new vendor and we redo all the back data, regenerate all of the charts and everything, and make it all the same. And, you know, as I said before, it's not as important what the actual number is as long as that number is consistently calculated across the all time. And you're comparing apples to apples that way. And, you know, and I mean, they have to be realistic, but they have to be computed the same way. Whatever it is that they're drawing their numbers off of, they have to be the same. And if they do that, then all this works. So it doesn't matter that the numbers will be different to some degree when we go to this new data vendor that we're trying to go to, but I can't go to the new data vendor until I get all the charts, all the back data updated. So it's going to take a while. So for the time being, we're gonna be stuck where we were, and that is that we're going to be doing this at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains. So, with all that said, let's pop in here and look at what happened today. As you all know, the market continued its up, but then it ran into some problems, and those problems ended up turning this thing around. All day long, the NASDAQ was weaker. And we're going to look at some of the reasons for that, but we ended up with the Dow basically flat, but up 14 points, 15,976. The S&Ps dropped 6.5, 1791.5. The composite down a whopping 37, 39.49. Index down 33 3/4 at 33.88, almost 89. And the Russell, also a big drop, down almost 9. 11,007 1/4. Elsewhere, it was pretty much red across the board. All these were red. We got a little bounce here after hours in a couple of them, although the bonds were up again today. That's kind of the big picture. Okay, where the numbers go. Okay, now it didn't look that way to start. And last night we were talking about the scenario where, if in fact we saw this market push up into the round numbers, right? It would be at those round numbers that we might see this thing flip, and that's exactly what we saw today. S&Ps, they go up to 1802.33. They flip around, they have less volume, they go over the top, back under it, but that, even though that is a quote-unquote 2-bar reversal, it doesn't have the extended part of it to me. It's just not extended. So from that perspective, I wouldn't call this a 2-bar reversal, and that's a judgment call. But it is a push up, over, back under. Yeah, we can pull back a little bit, and I expect we will pull back a little bit. I've been thinking that, you know, we hit the round numbers, we'd probably see something like that. But I don't think it's something that you get all you know, upset about, at least not yet. Dow Jones, even though the Dow held, volume was lighter, and you got an ugly tail. I suspect this one's going to try to come back a little bit too. The IXIC, if we go walk over to the NASDAQ. Now the NASDAQ and the NDX, and of course the Russell, Remember, those guys led all year, especially the Russell. And then the last month or so, we've been seeing it flipped over into listed issue. Why is that? Because we're into the year and people trying to be safer. That's my take as to what's going on. That's why you're seeing a push into the big cap, big liquidity, quote unquote safer, right? And they're pushing everything over to there. Well, today the NASDAQ, remember last week, NASDAQ goes over the high, right? And so we pop over the high, and in doing so, we break this swing point high, we get over it right there, and that break gets us a little bit of a push, and now we're coming back. What are we coming back to do? Well, we're going to do a retest regenerate. That retest regenerate, it will be important to see how we hold as we come back from both a volume and price perspective. The low that we're looking at is the low here on the 30th. You got 19.2 there. You're coming back with 18.2 so far, but you came off pretty hard today. What led to this big move, or what led to this spill, so to speak, today? Well, the thing that I saw starting to happen earlier today, I brought it up in the TNT room to subscribers where we trade all day long, and I told them that we're starting to lose it here on some of these stocks, in particular stocks like social media, Facebook for one. Remember Facebook, this is a kind of a classic story here. There was a trade in this, but you had to take it and get out of the way. This bar was the earnings bar. Remember that was a shot up overnight. This thing traded up in here somewhere on earnings. Gave it all up that night and closed back down into where it was at the beginning, which was this level. Closed back into that area, and then the next day tried to push up and reverse down, had big volume, and then came back up at the end of the day. Right? Now when it came down to this area here, when you were coming down into this low and you were coming into this low, right, this was a buy point because the volumes were low compared to what you were coming up against on that swing point low. The problem is that you can't just sit with those things because it already told you that there were issues. And now we're seeing the push back down. This thing's going to try to break back down underneath the swing point low now. If it does it, there really isn't anything to hold it anymore until you get back to here. And that's not a great hold. There's some here, but that's not a great hold. You really have to go, I'm going to pull over the weekly chart. You really have to push back into deeper areas, back into these bars. These are the bars that have volume on it. Now, I don't know if it's going to come back this far or not, but this is the key area on the way back, and that is a long way down. Now, remember, this guy broke, and he never, let me get a different pencil here. He never did a retest regen off this high. Now, that's a long way back down. I don't know if we're going to make it there anytime soon, but a break of this low is going to open it up to come back down farther. So, these people that fell in love with these stocks may not work. We'll see how it works out. But right now, it's a question mark in my mind. And it wasn't just that. I mean, if we look at social media in general, you'll see here that you're getting a breakdown in the whole sector, right? The sector had a swing point low, just like Facebook, came down, tested. Now it looks to me like it's going to come down and try to do it again. If it's going to do it again, right, if it's going to break down here, it has a much better chance of breaking it down this time. So the same sort of thing here. You can see it here on the weekly. These stocks have had big runs, right, to come back down, to have problems here, what can I say? They had a big run, right? They're due to have some profit taking. Does it mean the move's over? No. Does it mean it's a range trade? Yeah, it probably does. And I've been saying that for a while. Another one was Yelp. I think that Yelp has the same sort of scenario, right? You've got this big, broad range now that's playing out. And on this range, it looks to me like that range is gonna continue to pressure. When you get these things that set up this way, right? In this particular case, you got a bunch of swing point highs at the top, and you got some swing point lows at the bottom. If you go breaking swing point lows, it's a problem, and you're going to come down here and try to do it now. That's only on this time frame, so from that perspective, it's not the end of the world, but it's certainly not a good thing. Somebody asked me, I think it was last night or maybe it was on Thursday night show, of a whether or not they should buy Tesla. And this stock, I was very adamant about. This is not the place to be buying this thing. And you see how the air came out of it again today. I said this thing could trade back to 97 or 100. That looks to me where it's heading. It's 119 was the low today. Yeah, it can bounce out of here, but now you've got an ABCD structure on the way down. I don't know what that measures to. I haven't looked at it. 181. Oh my God, that's a big number. To 32. So that's roughly 50 bucks off of this guy. Where does that take it? 50 bucks off of 145. Right around 97. Right around that number we were looking at. So this ABCD structure is going to take this thing more than likely all the way down to that 97 number we were talking about. You know, wherever that is down here. So if you're in this, you haven't gotten out, and I even did a video on this thing sometime back. It was actually one of the first videos I did right here on the 1 minute trade, Tesla. You can go back and look at it. I told you if you were in this thing, don't wait to get bailed out. Take your money and get out of the way. Okay, let's go back to the indexes. So I want to look one more time at, well, not the major sectors yet. I want to look at the Russell. Let me go look at the Russell real quick. I don't think anybody else is having problems. I see Jim Smith is having problems. You just need to restart your browser and come back in. I don't know what you're pulling video on, but there's a lot of video pushed here. So if it's your first time in, maybe there's a problem with your bandwidth. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go on. Jim's got his video running now. Cool. I want to go to the Russell real quick, and the reason I want to come to the Russell is the Russell has been given the best signals for a long time. Now the Russell went up today, and if you look on the IWM, it was actually trying to test the top. It didn't quite get there here on this particular index. Matter of fact, let me pull the IWM and see what it looks like right quick. I believe it was almost to the highs here. So on the Russell, that was 1123. Yeah, see, the IWM got right to it. 1148, 1142. And when I see something like the IWM pushing up to the top and the Russell not following, which is the true index that the IWM should be running off of, that tells me that it was a bunch of money pouring into it from smaller sources, right? Even though it almost got to the top, you know, it's a different scenario because the index itself wasn't doing it. And who's going to be buying the ETFs? Well, it's the smaller traders, and I don't mean mom and pops like me and you, but you know, the smaller, you know, people that are buying thousands of shares, not millions, I guess is the way I'm trying to say it. And so you can see the divergence here where there's definitely a difference between what you saw on the Russell IWM versus here on the Russell itself. There's a divergence, right? This thing got up, reversed, flipped around, went all the way back, and I want to take you intraday real quick and show you what these things look like. So if I go intraday, I happen to have the NDX up, so let's just take it. You see this drop off here? I mean, this thing went off the cliff, straight down, right? I mean, once it went, and believe me, this was a fast move. I was trading this thing short, and I got about half the move on the futures, and I was, as a matter of fact, it was right about here because this is where it tried to bounce. And I was telling the folks that I was trading with that, you know, the reason I've taken my money here is because it's been a strong market, and the odds of it just really dumping is not that great. Well, it dumped. It just did another half of it after I got out. So I thought that I'd already got the move here on the ABCD structure intraday. Well, that wasn't the whole move. The whole move really was from here, ABCD structure, all the way down. But that's the way it goes. You don't always get them. But you saw it here. You saw it on the Russell. We could pull the Russell up. Actually, let's look at this with the Qs and see what the volume did as it came out. I'm going to put it on like 10 minutes so we can see it. Yeah, the volume wasn't that bad though. So you had wide price, fast movement, right, without huge volume. That tells me this thing can bounce. Let's look at this SPY, see what that one looked like intraday, because I don't get volumes on the indexes on these charts. And so that one doesn't look that much different. A little bit more volume coming out of it. And let me see on the IWM. Again, volume not so bad here, but yeah, straight down moves. I mean, just if you put it on 1 minute, you can feel the magnitude of that drop. Happened very quickly. All right, let's pop back into here. Let's go to the sectors now and see what we got going on. So if I look at the indexes, this is just a small pullback, okay? It could turn into something larger, but we talked about I talked about three things. I talked about the Russell getting to the top, which is what it did, right? Coming up here to test the top. I talked about the NASDAQ trading up to that round number resistance and the S&P doing the same. S&P at 1,800 and the NASDAQ at 4,000. NASDAQ got to 39.95 roughly. S&P's got to 1802. Russell got very close to the tops, and that's where they flipped them around. So now, what do you have? Well, we talked about it last night. We're probably going to get a setup, and I would use the S&Ps or the Dow to look at it, and that setup is probably going to be some sort of an ABC structure inside the larger one that's already in place. So the larger one is here, right? And what you would expect to see now is you've already had, and I didn't draw this one in last time, but you've already had this little ABCD complete now. Now, if you get some sort of a small retrace, maybe back into the retest regen on this, you can get the next push up. And so we'll be looking to see if that's the way it sets up. Of course, you got to make those calls live as it happens, because if you wait too long, most of the move's gone, and you're actually setting yourself up for failure by moving too slow. And so it's always an interesting battle. Let's pop into these sectors real quick and take a look at them. Okay, so I'll start with the IYT. Yeah, same sort of thing. Some sort of a pullback into the area that it broke over. Let me see about the semis. Now, the semis have not been able to get out of their own way, and they still can't. Semis are stuck. They've been stuck, and they continue to be stuck. I don't see anything here that I would like, right? This just looks stuck. I don't see anything there. Let's see about the XLB. So, three strongest ones have been lately: XLF, XLI, IYT. We saw the IYT flip. XLB flips got more volume though. That's actually not a bad thing. XLE, excuse me, also more volume. Now it tested over the high 87.62. So it's doing 10.4 on 11.3. Yeah. So all of these now, to me, and this is where you need to look. There's two things to watch on all of this stuff. Most of them are going to give you retest, regenerate zone. That's the zone on this one, right? And so it would actually probably be more advisable to color it a different color. So that's the zone. So it can retest all the way back down into this area, which is the bottom of the breakout, the swing point high, 86.01, right? And we're already at 86.71 was the low today, right at 87 tonight. This one doesn't have a large ABCD structure in place, or potential for a large ABCD structure, but what it does have is it has the larger one that's been going now for a while, right? And is still trying to break higher. and they almost all have that one. So that's a pullback coming. XLF. These guys broke out. They broke out with strength on Friday. They actually got, just like the XLB, they actually got more volume in it today on the reversal, doing the same sort of thing. They can come back and do their retest regen right back off of these swing point highs. There's two of them, so you actually could test both. Usually you'll test the top one first, and then potentially come test the lower one. But that one, now this one actually has, this one's more like the S&P 500, right? On the ABCD structures, you got the large ABCD structure over here, right? Then you just had a small one complete here, and it completed almost to the penny today. Now if it pulls back, it can set up the next one to take it back up, just like the S&P, to the same area. In other words, you'd have nested ones trying to go higher. XLI, they don't even want to hardly give this one up. This one's going to pull back a little bit, but that has been a very strong sector. And it's a mirror of what's happening in the Dow, right? Because they're basically the same. And the Dow hasn't had any kind of pullback either. XLK, technology, you had a big bar, you tested the top of it, that top 34.33, you got over it, and you closed under it. I think you're going to get your pullback here, back somewhere into probably this big heavy bar. What is it, about 34? So not that much farther. Let me see, XLP. So this is one of those safety areas. Let's see how it maintained today. Yeah, not bad. It hang up there, no volume. And I would think the utilities may be the same thing. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, they hung up there as well, although a little bit more volume on those. XLV was coming on strong. We looked at it last night. And yeah, it hang up there too. Not bad. I wouldn't, if you're looking for places to trade into the end of the year, you're going to like these kinds of sectors, right? A retest regen back into this area, right, is not a bad deal, because you're going to have those nested ABCD structures, in place. This just finished one here, right? Now if it comes back a little bit more and gets another one up, right, you can have that same sort of thing going. So XLF, XLV doing the same thing. XLI doesn't even want to come in. IYT is probably going to be doing the same thing. And let's see what the consumer discretionary looks like. And that's not bad either. It's going to do this exact same thing. So you got four of them all trying to do the same sort of thing. And that's the largest weightings almost. Actually, it's not true. XLE doesn't look quite as strong, and the XLK wants to pull back a little bit deeper. Okay, so that's not bad. Let's pop over real quick, and I'm only going to look at a couple more things and then take a couple questions I see. So on the Ox markets, let's start off with the dollar, because the dollar was under pressure again today. Let's see how it held up. So it gaps down. The FXE, oh, look at it, it reversed around. So it gaps down, it comes down, and it's still trying to test back into here, test into here, right? Into these large volume bars. Okay, so let's look at the lows. 2173, where did we close today? 2173, right at it. So it gets under here and closes at it. It was coming into this one, 2166, 2173, closes right at the highs of it. That looks like it's going to try to reverse. Let me see if the FXE is telling the same story. If true, that's going to put more pressure on gold. Gold was under pressure today anyway. And FXE 133.71 test into, yeah, tested right into it and failed. So yes, that both of those look like they're going to try to trade back the other ways now. Gold under pressure. Let me see what gold looks like real quick. It's still no volume, but this certainly looks like it wants to come back. We talked about it last night. It looks to me like it's going to try to come back and test that zone one more time, right at the bottom. Try to break these again. If it does, there's not much underneath it. So kind of a do or die situation here. Let's see what the SLV looks like, if it's telling us anything different. No, it's worse, and it's already under it. That's not a good scene if you're a gold bug. Notice what you also have here now, and I would expect you're probably going to see this happen on the gold next. You had ABCD structures, right, that completed. That's about a completion on that one. Then from here you get another little bounce, and now you're going to try to complete again. And if we pull this over and look at the silver on a weekly, that's going to get it into that big bar where volume is on the bottom. So that doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all, actually, if you want to be along those markets. Let's see what oil did. Oil was trying to trade lower again. It's been trying to bounce, and oh man, they're trying, aren't they? They're trying to break it out one more time here at the bottom, but they're struggling. So oil traded down this morning, flipped around, and then it came down at the end of the day again. So tomorrow will be a big one on that one. And what was the other one? TLT. Let's go look at the bonds, and then I'll take your questions. Okay, on bonds, powering back up. It's going to test that resistance zone. So this has turned out to be stronger than I thought it would be. I thought we'd get a bounce, but I thought we'd actually come back. This is the zone it wants to test. It doesn't have the volume, but you know it doesn't really care. The retest regen is off this bar, and it looks like it's going to try to do a full test of it, and then that will be where, you know, the rubber meets the road, and we'll find out what it really wants to do. All right, I got a question over here. Let me pop over, see if I can take this, see what we got. So the question is ROX, Castle Brands. Let's see what Castle Brands looks like. Okay, so ROX. So is it a decent setup to go long is the question. I'm going to pull it over so we can see the weekly as well. Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is a great setup actually. So what do these guys do? ROX. So this is like beverages and wines, huh? Huh. Well, I don't know, but something's coming down the pipe on this guy, because something is moving it. It's really strong. So on the MTTF, it's pretty stretched on the short term, but it's not, you know, this is not a bad situation. It's not really stretched over here yet at all, right? So yeah, it wants to, you know, it's going to want to reset this at some point, but right now it's not an issue. So if I go back to the chart real quick and look at it one more time, and then I'll take your last question there. Yeah, this is a nice setup. This is a very nice setup. Right here. DBD, let me see what this one is real quick for Zach, and then I'll let it go. So DBD, this is Diebold, I believe. This is an industrial, if I remember right. DBD. Oh, it's application. Diebold is application software. Okay, so yeah, this is just a big range trade, Zach. I mean, you can get back to this top, and you got good volume, but this high here, but this is a range trade. There's better trades out there probably. One more, okay. I'll do one more real quick. TLM. Let me see what this one is, and then I'm gonna have to call it a night. Okay, TLM. So what do we got here? TLM, Talisman Energy. Okay, so energy sector's been strong. So when I look at this, the very first thing that I see that I don't like is here. I don't like these big tails when they do this. It did leave volume, so it says it can come back up and test it. And it was going against this wide price spread bar. That's not bad. Notice this big dart candle, so it went up there and gave it all up, is what it's telling you. Yeah, I just, on a stock like this, I would do one of two things. I would either let it come back deeper, right, probably back into this area, all the way down here, or I would force it to break out. Otherwise, I probably don't trade it. I just don't see what's in, all this up and down stuff. That's just thrashing stuff to me. All right, folks, thanks a lot. I appreciate you being there. Tell a friend, tell two. We will be at 9 o'clock Eastern time until I get those new quote systems up and running, it looks like. So at least another couple of weeks probably. Until then, take care, and I'll see you next time. Have a great one, folks. Good night.